Sponsored by Midland, communication for every adventure. The industry leader in radio communication technology and innovation for over 50 years. Sponsored by MyMedic. Sponsored by Tembo Tusk. Sponsored by Shower Pouch. Sponsored by DMOS Collective, mission built and made for mobility. Sponsored by BrewTrek. Sponsored by Hard Impact Designs.
Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
What's up, Mike?
Oh, a lot of good stuff, Bill. A lot of good stuff.
Whoa, whoa. Is that a new shirt?
Oh, yeah. Look at this. This is the new Drive the Globe sweatshirt. Green. You can kind of see here, probably. It's green. And here's the back.
Oh, I like the back even better.
Yeah, but it came out nice. I got some new swag that's going to be debuting. I would say it's going to be debuting at the Overland Expo West in Flagstaff.
So you started the show off pissing me off.
Uh-oh. What'd I do now? My
worst Waypoint Overland sweatshirt.
Yep.
I'm wearing.
Why is it worse? It's nice. It's blue.
It's a very old sweatshirt. It was a generic logo that they provide for you and everything. And then you come out with some new swag.
Well, I know, but I can't. I got to keep up with you. You got swag behind you. You got a nice screen. You got a microphone swag. You just, yeah.
No, I like
Overland, I tell you, Waypoint Overland is on the top of the swag game. So Drive the Globe. Hold on, maybe I should sit in the chair like this from now on. There we go.
Do you know what I'm liking about it?
What?
Whatever material that is looks cool.
It's really soft. It's nice. Yeah.
That's why this would never be for sale, because it loses shape. It's not a good material for if you're sweating. That looks like something I would actually wear. It looks nice. It looks like it might even wick or something.
Yep. Yeah. Nice. Anyways, beautiful day here to talk about gear and swag, but I'm sure that's not what you guys have come to listen to us.
Well, bro, we haven't officially started. We can. I wanted to kind of warn you about the direction we were going. Okay, so maybe this will be one of those rolling starts.
Oh, let's go. Let's do it.
I know I had you watch a bunch of film.
Yep.
And look at a bunch of pics and read a bunch of info, and I bugged you about it all through the week because I had.
By the way, for everybody out there, that's, because we got to prepare for this podcast because we don't just wing it all the time.
Well, he likes to wing it, and I'm the prepared one. We're like, how the odd couple, the one likes to clean up, and the other one was messy. Yeah. I hope you decide that you want to keep going and this be our podcast instead.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about the value of women in the Overland community. And before you agree, I'm going to speak my mind. I'm not going to worry about what anybody thinks. I'm even going to mention people's names that I haven't asked permission for. They don't know that I'm going to say the things I'm going to say. I'll probably contact them afterwards and say, hey, watch the show. But they don't know I'm about to talk about them. And if this sounds like a topic where you're thinking this might go in a wrong direction for me, you let me know and we can go right to what we planned on talking about.
It sounds great to me. I'm in. I mean, okay. I'm the unorganized, right? So this is perfect. We're gonna go with the flow. Okay. That's what I like to do. Best kind of podcast there is.
Because this idea actually came up just a couple of hours ago.
Okay.
I was looking at some pics of the trips I've taken last year and got to the point where we were hanging out with chicks do it too. Mm-hmm. And it made me think about some of the observations were hanging out with her over an extended period of time and seeing the interactions she had with men, and how, one, they immediately assumed that they knew more and had done more. And it wasn't even based off of, I mean, it would just be because they were male, not because they had actually done anything or knew anything. And she might ask a question about something that they said, and you would see how their whole body language and everything would change when they realize, oh, she really knows what she's talking about. And that's just one thing. I saw many situations where she was the knowledgeable person, she was the experienced person, and she was treated as though, like, let me explain this to you. And they were treating her lesser than, is the bottom line. So that was the impetus for this idea. And we might even have to re-record. I don't know what direction this is going to go. This might end up being a segment, and then we go into what we were going to talk about, or this might end up being an entire podcast. And thanks for deciding to go ahead and just see where it goes. So, okay, here we go.
Okay, based on our past history, it assuredly will probably be a full podcast, because we seem to be able to go and talk about just about anything for a fair amount of time.
Okay, I just didn't want you to be under any pressure at all.
What he's saying is, I had no idea what we're talking about, which is totally true.
Yes. So I wanted to break it down in kind of like 3 segments. What is the current value of women in the overland community? What is their potential value? And then what is their future value? And I wanted to start with the current value, and I wanted to break that down into their value individually, as a team member, and then the business side. So let's first talk about the current value of women individually in overlanding. And one of the things I think is, I just want to start with setting the tone that there are a lot of segments of a lot of industries where the game or the business strategy is, I'm a female, I don't really have to know this, I don't really have to do this, I'm going to be successful because I'm pretty. And there is an element of that in this business like any other business. So I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about women who are actually solo traveling, who actually go to these events, who actually are really doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm a witness to, there are a lot of them. So they contribute, their first value to me is, it's a bunch of them out there already doing it. There's more than you think. And they are not getting their just due. Another thing, as far as their current value individually, is I think that they have affected the market. I think they have affected the events we go to, all in positive ways. I think a lot of people are not aware that these events that they've been going to was owned up until recently by 2 sisters. I think a lot of people are not aware that a lot of the arrangements that are made as far as trainers and things like that, that's a lady.
Well, let me address that for a second. I mean, I guess we're going to start at the beginning of time here, but first off, I'm going to state the obvious. There are 50% of the humans in the world are women, and 50% are men, basically. So your pools to choose from in any environment are equal, right? And I think particularly in the, quote, stereotypical off-road, outdoor adventure, rugged sort of market, it was maybe in the old days, it was stereotypically a male-dominated industry. And I would agree with what you just said. And first of all, I don't think that that's necessarily the case anymore by any stretch of the imagination, nor should it be. But I got to agree with what you said. I think that the women in the quote overland community are hugely powerful and extremely successful. And I don't think that the overland community would be the same without them by any stretch of the imagination. And yes, I would agree with you also on the point where the products that are being designed and some of the equipment is geared towards the possibility that there are multiple views of looking at the same solution to a problem. Because, we joke, what is the old thing? Men are from Venus and women are from Mars, or is it the other way around, or whatever. So there may be a different outlook between the different people out there. And by the way, it's not just male, female, it's, wealthy, it's economic, it's background stuff, it's cultures. There's all sorts of stuff that we could address. But whenever you get a mix of different people trying to solve the same, let's just call it the same problem, or coming up with ideas, the more varied the backgrounds are, the better. That's my strong belief. So, you want to mention names. I hung out with somebody in Baja who has a YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked her out yet, please do. Her name is Simply Lesa is her YouTube.
Oh yeah, she's cool.
Yeah, and I didn't know a ton about her before she came down to Baja. And here's and I don't want to go down all sorts of tangents, but she's a single woman that's been traveling. Quite frankly, she's been traveling like most of her life, not necessarily all vehicle based. And she has a ton of experience, just an enormous amount of experience. So to say that, for some reason that she's going to be less experienced or less knowledgeable about things than, say, an equivalent male is asinine, quite frankly. And she is unique in a couple perspectives. One, she's disabled and she's older. So she doesn't meet any of what I would consider to be what maybe were the former stereotypes of, quote, the 4x4 off-road market industry. And that is like super refreshing because, to hang out with her, say, down in Mexico, it was her first time going through. She's lived in the Spanish, world in Central America, but this was her first time going through Baja. And really, for that would matter, it was also a first time that she was doing some of the aggressive, what I'm going to call more aggressive trails and off-road routes throughout the peninsula of Baja. And, she learned as she went. She was with a group of people, and it was fascinating and awesome to see. And I think that's certainly where I want the overland community to go towards. And I'm not suggesting that I necessarily think it isn't there, but that's just one example of something that I thought was fantastic.
I am so glad you brought her up because she is a good example of the point that I'm trying to make. I hope that you took some pictures while she was there, because I would like to show her vehicle when this is posted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
So one of the points I want to make is most of us big macho guys, we get on our YouTube channels and say, oh, before you go to Baja, you need 37s and skid plates and 200 gallons of extra gas and blah, 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 blah.
Look at my rig. I'm a good example of that. And talk about her.
And I believe if you gave 100 of these overlanders a poll and said, guess what you think her vehicle is, I'm saying 100 of 100 are going to get her vehicle wrong.
Yeah.
It's stock, right?
It's virtually stuck. It is 4-wheel drive. It is a. I'm going to get this wrong. I
think it's a Suzuki Sidekick.
Yeah, yeah,
or a variant.
Yeah, I always put the Suzuki Sidekick, Geo Tracker, Chevy Tracker, all in this, the same basic vehicle. I'll get back to you on that. I can't totally remember which one it is, but yeah, long and short of it is it's a small, tiny, I call it in the micro SUV 4-wheel drive category.
Yes. And another thing about her, I've had the opportunity to film her doing her class. When you think about it, the most basic things, any given instructor, if he's good, they're all going to be saying the same thing when it comes to like winching or something like that. Well, the thing about her class is she gives these little tiny in between the cracks tips that I think take you further than the ones. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's, once again, it always goes back to the same thing for me. It's about getting out and doing it. And she's getting out there and doing it. She's in a small vehicle. She doesn't have a winch. She doesn't have a rooftop tent. She doesn't have rotopack strapped to the side of her truck. But what she does have, and she's doing it, by the way, she's doing it with a disability and on a very tight budget.
Yes.
She did not have a ton of resources. So that is super, super interesting and inspiring to me because, that just goes to show you all these people that are like getting ready to get ready all the time. I can't quite head out on this trip next weekend because, I haven't bolted that new bumper on, or all this stuff that, people tend to make excuses up about why they're not doing what they're doing. I mean, let's just be honest. Let's just admit to what you're doing. You like, as do I, but you like building your truck. That's not the same thing as liking to go on adventures or being an overlander and going to visit new locales and different things off the beaten track. Those are two different things. Now, I'm not saying you can. I mean, me, myself, I like to do both of those things, but I'm not confusing them together. So, she, using Lesa as an example, is really inspiring, getting out there and doing it without having to spend a lot of money either on her truck or on the actual trip itself, because it's about seeing and doing, and she's living on the road in that, and hey, it's not for everybody. I mean, I don't know that I could necessarily live in a little, truck that size. It's just not what I do. But everybody's got different stuff, and that's what's great. And that's to bring it back to the women in the overlanding community. I'll tell you, she's an example, and she's not unique in a sense that. I could go on and on about more stories of women, particularly this winter, in the van, because I merged van life, overlanding. It's all one and the same, in my opinion. And, just going to some of the events that I've went to over the winter down in Baja, I'll tell you that, if you took 1,000 vehicles showing up at an event today, so this is to answer your question specifically about, their women's influence in overlanding today. I would say out of 1,000 vehicles, 65 to 70%, these are of solo travelers, are women.
And just to reiterate something we talk about all the time, if this is somebody's first time listening, from our observations, a majority of solo travelers are female.
That's right. So there are more female travelers than men. Now we can break that down into a whole thing about what the reasons for that, because I think some of it's fascinating. And I'm not excluding women as couples either. So that's not even counting that. So there are a fair amount of couples that are on the road traveling. Both, a male-female couple or, a female-female couple. So there's a lot of that on the road too. So, if I had to break down, all the people in the Overland community by sex, I would say it's overwhelmingly female.
Absolutely. How ironic.
How ironic. Because I don't think anybody has ever noticed that or thought about that. But that's the reality. And yeah, to go back to one of the things you said, you could bucket them into different categories, if you will. And I know you mentioned, and I'll touch on this myself, because it's sort of the taboo that we're not supposed to really say, but there's there's a sexist thing where, and it's not necessarily true, certainly, but there's this thing where, the women can use a sex appeal as an attractor, and I got to tell you, and that a lot of times that's obviously when we're addressing like social media and things like that. If they wanting to become a media influencer or whatnot, I have found that to be really not accurate. I'm not going to say that there's nobody that doesn't play that game. And I would imagine there's just as many men that play that game, honestly, as women do. So let's just count that for a second. But I will tell you that that's really simply not true. I think that, and maybe this is breaking down what the barriers or the differences of why there are more women traveling solo than men. And I think it's because, I'll just say it as a man, I think women are more inclined to take calculated chances and risks. I think men are wimps when it comes to it. I think they'd rather hang out in their garage and strap roto-packs to the side of their truck, because
I agree.
Of the unknown. I think women are probably a little bit better at bonding, which gives them the ability to meet people on the road as solo travelers a little easier. And even if it's just something simple as going into a village and trying to figure out where a restaurant or grocery store or whatever is, I think they're more inclined to ask questions. What's the stereotype? Men don't ask anybody. Don't ask for directions. There's truth to.
I know where I'm going.
Right?
Yeah, I know where I'm going.
Oh, good, because I just got dropped into the middle of this podcast. I don't even know what we're talking about now. But seriously, it fascinates me to run. So when I hit the road 3 years ago, and I should, what, let me take this way back. I know I'm just babbling on now, but just tell me to shut up. Let me take it way back into my original days of overlanding when I was in Africa. And I will tell you that even back then, this is a long time ago now, I ran into, and this was not Americans mostly at the time, but international travelers, Australia, France, Italy, Germany, from wherever. Even back then, it was a lot of women travelers, a lot of solo women travelers. I think I don't know if we ever talked about this on a podcast, but I was stuck in Rwanda. And we ended up having to get out of Rwanda, and largely I got rescued. We were in the middle of the Civil War. I largely got rescued by two Danish girls that were traveling solo. They actually hooked up together, and they were two women in the middle of Central Africa, traveling around by themselves. So I saw this a long time ago, and I think that was probably my first instance of realizing on that particular trip that, wow, this is not at all what I thought. I grew up with a different idea, and over the years, I think that's panned out. And now, come to modern day, I think we're still seeing the same thing. So there's reasons behind this, and that's, I guess, what I'm getting to.
I'm with you. I'd like to talk about them as a team member too, because I've heard men talk as though having to be paired off with a female as a team member is like that's some bad thing, like it's a demotion or you've been done wrong. There are men who don't think that a woman can be a good team member as part of a team. And I totally disagree with that. And there are many reasons why. One, men perform around women. So I've noticed when you could be like, why are you coming this direction? But I've noticed when there's at least one woman on the team, men tend to collect more firewood.
Yeah.
And that's a plus for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I know this is supposed to be serious, but
no,
they seem to incentivize the men to be more responsible and do their jobs. So that's one benefit to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that point up. Interaction between whether it's couples or traveling groups of mixed sexes in them, and you could even take the sex part out of this altogether. Groups traveling together have dynamics, right? So, different people have different skill sets, different people have different requirements, different people have different wants and desires. And, in some circumstances, may say that women and men think a little bit differently. I think that's powerful because it brings more viewpoints to the table, right? It's just like having 6 brains is better than one.
Which brings me to another observed issue that I've seen many times. I've seen where there was a problem or a navigation issue or whatever, and everybody's chirping in. And I've seen where the woman, the female, the lady, she gave an answer. It was the answer. We should just move on. But the conversation keeps going and keeps going. And then somebody basically repeats what she just said. Now it's valid. They don't even give her credit for 15 minutes ago saying, oh, we should reroute here, or we should do this or whatever. And when she said the same exact thing, there was like no credence given to what she was said.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's sad. That is a fact, I think, certainly with some men. I will tell you, I kind of have the opposite perspective on that. If she says it, we're probably doing it because, you and I could probably, it's like we're, who are those guys? Who are the guys that we run around with the sticks and the rocks? The cavemen. That's kind of like us, so we're going to be like, I don't know.
And here's another good thing about a more practical, not silly, funny advantage to having a female team member. It's kind of like women's basketball. Women start out learning fundamentals. They usually know the fundamentals and the rules of something. And that's what I've observed in this community is women typically, there's usually more women at the classes, certain classes. Like a navigation class, it'll usually be like more women. It may be because she's the navigator for the husband. Whatever the reason, I see more women at a lot of these classes because they want to know exactly the right way to do it. And
yeah, it's funny you say that about basketball because I got to totally agree with you here. If you watch, say, college women's basketball versus college men's basketball, it's actually skill-wise much
beautiful.
Better. Yeah, exactly. They do it by the book. They learn a skill, they learn a play. Whereas it might not be nearly as quote brute strength powerful. It's executed in a much better way, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about a little bit.
Just think about this. How many times have you ever seen a female athlete basketball go from high school all the way to pros and had a funny looking jump shot? And right. Think about how many men have unorthodox, unfundamental shots.
Yep.
And
that's right.
I think it's the same. Like women will know how to do it correctly. more often than the men. The men will just rely on hearsay from another guy and what they think, and because they're a man. A lot.
So let me ask you this. What is your feeling then? Why are there more women solo travelers than male solo travelers? What do you think that reason is, Phil? Like,
oh boy.
Good question. Usually you ask me a lot of questions, so I gotta let me ask Phil a couple of hard ones.
Because I don't have to think of an answer. It's just whether I want to say the answer. There are many reasons. It usually, from what I have seen in my experiences, it's kind of like them going against the grain of what culture has told them about themselves, whether it's what a woman is and what a woman can do, or it may be who a woman can be with. Those are the most common reasons that I have seen, what I have observed. Now, that don't mean it's accurate at all, but it's usually, like I said, all my experiences. I meet women who say, I was married and I basically suppressed a certain part of myself, and now I'm just going to be that. I'm just, he didn't want to camp. He was the one prissy and didn't like to go outside and play or whatever. And now I'm going to do that.
I want to touch on one of the things you used, the word suppressed, and that is a concern, because that actually I've seen played out where I've met a number of women traveling on the road, and they are living out an adventure now because they felt like they were suppressed by a man in their past life. And that obviously is probably indicative of a larger societal problem, but
that's why I said, oh boy, you taking me down a wormhole.
Hey, we're already going to get criticized because a bunch of two guys talking about women here with no women on the podcast, which by the way, what we're going to do is we're going to have this same conversation. We're going to bring on a couple of women on here, and we're going to ask them the same questions and talk about what we're doing right now. So, and then we'll see if it pans out to be the same, or they just take over our microphones and throw us to the side.
Mm-hmm. Now I would like to go into the business side. I know for a fact that most men are not aware of how much on the business side women are there. One of our sponsors, she makes a shovel. She ain't just like an executive that said, let me hire some people who know what they're doing. You can talk to her about her products from beginning to end, production, what it can and cannot do, anything about it. She can sit there like any man and talk about her product and talk about it, about manufacturing and things like that. I can think of a lady I interviewed. I know you know her, Emily Miller, the owner and director of Rebelle Rally.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, God, I got to find it.
By the way, is a large organization that, it's a women only event, but there's a lot more than this. The event itself, there's training, there's programs, there's a bunch of stuff that's above and beyond that. It's an all year long kind of thing.
So this is a good example to use, I think, of the value of women. Because I think there's I'm setting the record straight with this podcast today. So with the Rebel Rally, I want to read something directly from their website, and I'm going to read it a certain kind of way. So I can't find it, but the Rebel Rally is the first women's off-road navigation rally in the United States. And I want to address how most men will react to what I just said. Oh, they're doing something kind of sort of like something the men are doing. That's the immediate reaction of most men. It's a natural reaction. I get it. But as you know, this isn't like one of those events where they claim to be doing something huge or just like the men, where there's all, like all kind of help and support, or they've changed the rules or the physical requirements. This isn't one of those type of things. They actually are going harder than the men in certain instances. Most of the men
they've taken, for those that don't understand the concept, the Rebelle rally's taken basically the classic rally formula, old school rally formula, where they navigate by maps and compass and different plotting things, and it's a typical rally fashion, but they've added the element of off-road and camping and everything else into the whole scenario. So I used to do rallies back in the day, road rallies, using basically the same equipment, same concept that they're using, but with a lot less drama involved in the navigation on the off-road side of things. So that's definitely a skill set. And they're not skimping on anything in that kind of format. It's a very difficult, very intensive, and physically and mentally straining event.
In my opinion, many of the people listening, their social media stars, wouldn't make it through the training, the education, let alone the actual event.
I got something to show you right here. That's getting way off subject here.
I like that.
Whoops, it just disappeared on my back screen here. But that is the original stopwatch chronograph to do for road rallying right here. It happens to be sitting on my counter. Anyways, and getting back to women in the business side of it, that is an event that is run by women. Like you said, a lot of.
But I want to make the point that it's all they say it is. It's not some. We're claiming to do something and we're not doing it. They go through extensive training. They go through extensive navigation training and education. They generally, if a woman has gone through the Rebelle rally, I'm saying she knows more than the average guy who claims he's an Overlander. Absolutely.
Agreed. No, what I was saying is, one of my big sponsors, RENOGY, for those of you that don't know, is also a women-owned company, started by a woman. And largely, in fact, my big contact that I have there at an executive level is a woman. And so, I mean, it exists out there. It's all over us, which is great. And I feel like our podcast is turning into a scenario where we're talking to, I could be wrong here, but I feel like we're talking to the men of the Overland world and trying to let you guys know that this is the way it is. So get with the program. It's like I kind of feel like I'm trying to be a sales guy, but and I'm not trying to be a sales guy, but I just I accept it. I'm super happy that that's the way it is. Is there room for improvement? Yeah. I mean, do you still have issues, and do you still have scenarios where women are at a disadvantage and or are discriminated against? Absolutely. Unfortunately, yes.
And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I've just witnessed too many times somebody who don't know what they're talking about, and they'll be talking to a lady who's done it and be talking to her like she's an imbecile.
Yep.
And
sorry. I'm trying to get out of the sun coming through my window here. It's not good.
I'm hoping at least some of the men are hearing this podcast, and they won't be so quick to get into their bravado thing, because you're embarrassing yourself. Many times when you think you're bragging, the other person is looking at you like they don't know what they're talking about.
Yep. And there is a lot to address currently the women in overlanding. There are just a ton of fairly famous social media icons that are women in the Overland community. There are people running expos and organizing Overland events. There are women out there that are out there exploring and doing, not for the purpose of promoting it on any kind of media or anything, but just getting out there, finding themselves, recovering from something, getting away from whatever, just living life, many different reasons. And that is good to see. I think there's a lot more women influence on the products that are going out. I think there's a lot more women getting involved in the ownership and production of products that are in the Overland industry. So on all levels, it is great. I think the future.
Well, let's look at the potential first.
Okay, let's look at the potential.
Okay. Because it goes right with what you're saying. You know, we've already established that they're already the impetus behind some of the industry and the innovation that's going on. I think their potential ties into what we talked about last time on our news segment about the uncertainty about the growth of the industry. There's absolutely going to be no growth without the women.
No, because first of all, it's half the population. And second, to go back to, let's take it down to rocks and sticks level here. You know, last week or one of the podcasts we've done recently, we talked about the Overland industry and, you know, Turtleback Trailer going out of business and stuff like that, and reasons for that. I mean, let's face it, admittedly, some of the products, maybe many of the products, were designed by men for men with men hat on. And, you know, let's just take a trailer, and this is not criticizing or attacking any, or not even naming any company really, because I don't think that's the case. But let's take a trailer that was designed by a man. Let's just hypothetically designed by a man with man ideas, and a couple goes out for, you know, a week trip to Alaska, and the woman says, you know, hey, geez, you know, I wonder why they designed this slide out kitchen thing in the back like this. And, you know, I want to put my gear here. And how come it, you know, and their mindset is working differently. And let's face it, you know, if you're going to spend $40,000 on a trailer for your family, yeah, it would be a good idea that your whole family thinks it's a functional, good trailer, right? So if only 50% of that family, let's say it's a husband and wife, think it's a great idea, and the other half, in reality, do not enjoy it out on the road, because I talk about this all the time. If you're not comfortable and you're not enjoying your trip with the right setup, you're going to be miserable and you're never going to want to do it again. So, you know, if we're just talking about a male-female thing here, well, I got news for you guys. If you want your companion to be happy and comfortable, you better make sure that they are involved in the design of it. It's kind of common sense, but
what happens is, once we start making those adjustments, which has happened, we enjoy those comforts too.
Absolutely.
I think that all the innovation that you've seen in showers and toilets and stuff like that, that's all because of women.
Phil, I got the best compliment I could have got at Overland Expo, and I actually have got it more than once, where people come on board my truck and go, "Oh my God, this must have been designed by a woman."
So
that's the best compliment I heard. So it looks like it's comfortable, and it looks like it's functional, and it actually works.
That falls in line with a question I wanted to ask you, because I haven't observed it. Do you have a lot of women that go through the truck and then ask, "Are you married?"
Yeah. Oh yeah, constantly. If you know that one video that Tiny House Giant Journey did, I think it's got almost 5 million views on it now. I would say every 10 comments, 1 out of 10, somebody will ask, you know, am I married? Did I break up with somebody that designed it? You know, wow, I'd love to live in that. That looks like it, and these are coming from women. So
that's what I thought.
In fact, I've noticed, which is weird because YouTube typically skews, certainly my channel does, but tends to skew more heavily male than female. And I've noticed, and this may be part of that segment because it's like tiny homes, and I think maybe it skews heavier women. But I would say on those videos, it's probably more like 60-70% women that are commenting on them.
I asked that because I've seen you, I've hung out with you around your vehicle at many events. And what I have observed is there's a certain kind of reaction from the male and the female to the outside. And then there's a complete different reaction once they go on the inside. Mm-hmm. The guy is more enthused on the outside. The lady is more enthused on the inside. So I wondered, did she think that maybe it was some kind of female influence?
Yep. And then being a guy, I mean, I get it. Guys like man caves and like, let's make a cool man cave. However, let's all admit for a minute, like, I don't necessarily, just because I'm male, I don't want to live in a man cave. It's okay getting away to a man cave. But it isn't necessarily the most functional thing. Hey, if we wanted to build the all-out man cave, I would have tried to get a mini pool table in there and a kegerator, and we would have been good to go. But that's just not realistic for living.
I agree. My bat cave in the garage, those are the only things that I have permission to, do anything about.
That's right. Too funny.
So what do you see as the future or the value of women in the future in the Overlander community? One thing that I think for sure is the more and more women are involved on the business side and in the research and development side, we're going to see products that are actually innovative. I'm seeing a lot of incremental improvements on the same old thing. I think the big leaps are going to come from women who are looking at it differently, who have different needs. So I see innovation, and I see it coming from women.
Yeah, I'll tell a little short story. I was down on a beach in Baja, and a Overlander got stuck. And there was another truck trying to help him out. A Jeep came along. It was a Toyota, actually, that was stuck. And there were a couple of people there, actually two couples. And the one truck that was trying to unstuck the other truck had some sand ladders on board. And the gentleman that was, going to help the other guy was trying to get his sand ladders off of his truck. They were mounted sort of on his roof rack. Well, I guess he had them locked on there. He couldn't find the key, and he was struggling with the mechanism that was holding the sand ladders on. And anyways, it was going on and on. Meanwhile, his partner, who was female, walked over to the other truck that was stuck and was like, yep, Joe Smith, whatever his name is trying to get the sand ladders down. But, she goes, why don't you I got, you guys got these nice floor mats. Let's stick the floor mats under here. Could you air down? I hear her over there saying, are you air down? Let's put the floor mats under there. Anybody got a shovel? Blah, blah, blah. They had the truck unstuck under her direction before her partner could get the sand ladders off the truck. And, and sometimes I think that's a good example of he was going to go with the design way, the brute force. Yeah, you're stuck in sand. Let's get sand ladders. And the woman involved in this looked at it and said, okay, and I think analyzed the situation better and realized that, look, the sand ladders are taking too long to get off the truck. But in the meantime, did you air down? Did you have a shovel? Can we take some sand out in front of this tire? Let's shove a floor mat under there. Boom, truck unstuck. And, he's still up on this roof rack trying to get the sand ladders down. And I just found that kind of funny because she was the one that, clearly solved the problem.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.